Stand Up, a storyline of ex-villainesses restoring the metaphorical flame of the Ranger organization. Blood of Sephzero, a group of cursed ladies preventing the resurrection and sacrifice of one of their own. Not only are both within the U.N.I.T.S family, but both storylines are intertwined in more than one way, from its main characters being in a former boss-employee dynamic in the past, to the main character of Blood of Sephzero having her own little side story in Stand Up, to the main villain of Stand Up being involved in the resurrection procedure in Blood of Sephzero. These two storylines are so interconnected to one another that, much like the three U.N.I.T.S storylines of 2014 crossing over, the same would be done for the 2016 storylines. And this would become the belated storyline crossover of 2019. This is Blood of Stands. I'm AJ, and by this point, U.N.I.T.S was already done, ending in 2016 with an unnecessary epilogue in 2017. But with these two storylines already having sequels outside of U.N.I.T.S, it would be only fair to consider them separate in some ways. Similar to Pierce the Heavens being a prequel to Coral Knights, this storyline fits more into the ongoing situation that was occurring in Neo-Disney Fighting Evolution, the sequel to the original Disney Fighting Evolution, because of both main characters having ties to the Disney alignment, and that the crossover occurs in Florida. With that said, this video will be small because it is a crossover event that doesn't overstay its welcome. All of that said, let's get into it. It's the year 2019, and honestly, both the restorers of the Ranger Flame and the former members of the Sephzero organization had mostly been dormant. But because of the close friendship between Miss Lilith and Trakehna, they agreed to have their friend circles get together at the start of the spring, even suggesting that they would meet up in Florida, that way Miss Lilith wouldn't have to travel too far from her office. Upon the Restorers and Traders' arrival, they noticed that the entire week of this outing was nothing but rainstorms. While it was not under anyone's forecast, the appearance of rain invoked the arrival of a face that had not been seen in years. Though Rita's forces attacked the place 2 years ago, it was only fair for the Sephzero organization to show up instead. Starla still not being over the fact that she lost in Blood of Sephzero 2, and with all of the members now having their controllable Midland forms, she was itching to have another brawl with her former allies. But with the Restorers around, it was more of a fair fight. Though anyone who was not infected with the Sephzero blood made sure not to kill any of the members that was targeted by several others. But Starla and the organization wasn't the only big threat, because watching from afar was a gigantic anthro leopard standing alongside a woman with an umbrella. It wouldn't be long, and I mean literally the next day, the woman introduced herself. While neither group met her in person, they knew right away that this was Black Cat Felicia Hardy, who, last time in Shareverse, was accidentally sent into an endless void by my reflection in 2008. During this imprisonment, she had the privilege, or disprivilege, of witnessing different and surreal elements in the endless void with ethereal forces coming in and out. But during the time hole displacement disturbance in the SkypeNet War of 2015, Felicia was displaced out of the void and back onto Earth. After 7 years of being mentally tormented, she had the opportunity to get revenge. But interestingly enough, she did not go after AJ, the one who sent her into the void in the first place. In fact, she could have went after anyone else first, maybe Peter for not getting help, or even Carmilla, who had good ties with Marvel in the Viacom alignment. Rather, she went to Trakehna first, because she knew that Peter was a close assistant to her in the Sat AM business, that Felicia believed that it was her that ordered Peter to convince Felicia to test his boss's son in the first place. And within the years she was in the void, she was a lot more stronger than she once was. But she didn't come into the fight alone, as she introduced her partner that would help her reach her goal, the silent but powerful U.N.I.T.S, who was a part cyborg with mechanical arms and core. And for Felicia, she decided to retain her true power and toy with the former SAT-AM president, tossing her all over the place. But much like feline predators, Felicia wanted to play with her prey. Dragana felt embarrassment that she lost so easily to someone that she barely talked to, especially in the face of her former employee. Peter offered the idea of resorting the problem by talking to Felicia, but she declined on that request, especially with Starla trying to put on a show in Florida in the rain. But on the next day, they would soon get an unexpected arrival from the police. Within the Astral Division of the police force, many Astral Souls work in the Authority, but are placed within different factions based on the circumstances. And for that reason, the two officers that arrived were U.N.I.T.S 2B and U.N.I.T.S. Don't ask me which ending of Nier Automata is canon in Shareverse, especially with its Undertale-ass credits. Let's just say they arrived in the Prime Universe sometime after their game adaptation came out. Surviving, revived, who cares? Now you might think they would be living in a wealthy life, but they got thrown into the Force. Anyway, the two requested a search order to Miss Lilith about the former ABC family building, now renovated as a museum, claiming that there were reports of vandalism. See Wild and Crazy Guide for context on the building. And while she was reluctant, especially since the others were fighting the organization members at this time, she decided to take them with her, only to realize that it sprung a trap. The two placed the entire resort on lockdown by hacking into the museum's databases, and with Miss Lilith all alone, the two androids tried to take her down, sharing a common origin of being created by a higher being, only to be disposable regardless. Naturally, Lilithmon was able to beat both of them, but chose not to kill them, saying that she likes them. And if she did, it would cause a stain between Disney and Square Enix's good relationship that she did not want to deal with. Both sides of the skirmish, the organization members and Restorers and X-members, were shocked by the lockdown, and other people trying to do their job were annoyed that they couldn't get anything done. Unfortunately, the lockdown encryption was tight. Not even the best tech experts of the Disney alignments could crack it. Dahl was considering to bring back Wild and Crazy Guy Day, but all of those plans got halted. But whatever, the organization and Restorers and X members kept battling. For someone like Double, who was in the Smash Parody series, she was familiar with any of the Sephzero's members from those productions, so she had an easier time battling those members. And it wasn't long until Felicia and U.N.I.T.S jumped in too. With the entire resort departed from the rest of the world, there was nothing stopping Felicia to tap into her full power. But at that moment, the lockdown security was breached by force, revealing it to be Jen, fully hulked out and wielding her Uniblade. Felicia was not too surprised, considering Jen's fourth wall breaking abilities, that she would know whatever the author was thinking. So, she sicked U.N.I.T.S to fight her, and entered into a long and heated match where both fighters were badly damaged. But with the Uniblade being able to pierce all material in Shareverse, both physical and digital, eventually she slashed through U.N.I.T.'s defenses, and as a shock to everyone, revealed her true form, as it turned out to be Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, aka Felicia's longtime rival. So how did the two comic book cat thieves decide to work together? Shortly after Felicia emerged from the void, she actually darted her attention to Selena, instantly overpowering her to end their feud, and forced her to be her partner, but also her guinea pig. With Skynet's resources being so low and exposed to the world after the SkypeNet war, as well as scientific and magic stunts within the Marvel and DC circles, Felicia experimented on Selena with bioorganic and mechanical tests to grow Felicia's feline traits to actual monstrous proportions, granting her the U.N.I.T.S form as a reward. And because Selena has a strong bond with astral authorities, even being a part-time copper, she scrounged up 2B and U.N.I.T.S to work with them, where Felicia was impressed by their technological upbringings. But going back to the present, in almost no time, Selena retreated to recover her energy as the focus was shifted back to Felicia, where she unleashed her true power. During her time in the Void, one of the ethereal entities Felicia came across was an infection that acted no different to the Rage virus. But because time works differently in the Void, Felicia spent what felt like centuries in this zombified primitive mindset until eventually her body developed antibodies where the infection subsided. But this variant of Rage allowed Felicia to not only control her sanity in this form, but amplify her power to absurd levels, while also preventing her from sharing the infection to others. With the Yorha cops, she was given a device that would totally control her rage limiter to better keep her powers in check. But now, the limiter's off. The organization used that as an opportunity to go after the recharging U.N.I.T.S and their opponents, as Jen tried to help the two leads. But with the lockdown being breached, and upon hearing the news the night prior, my reflection got into the resort to help out. While running past Starla, as he did not want to get into U.N.I.T.'s sight, AJ arrived to confront Felicia, who was in the process of beating his astral mother and her former employee. But in a way, this turned out to be an advantage. AJ being Felicia's new punching bag was a distraction. The Restorers and ex-members entered into a three-way brawl with U.N.I.T.S and the organization, and later the cops also chimed in, and the two girls brought U.N.I.T.S out of the equation, and back to her partner. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Selena and Felicia became girlfriends in the time of that planning. Something I should have said sooner. With Jen wielding her Uniblade with a battered arm, she managed to strike U.N.I.T.S in her core, and slice it up from the middle of her body. But with so much damage she took, she lent her sword to the leads. Just in time after Felicia got her revenge on AJ, Drakena and Lilithmon swapped ownership of the Uniblade, taking turns slashing and or punching Felicia, eventually slashing it down the middle of her body, using both their strengths. With how much blood Felicia lost and gained from these fights, the slash caused her to immediately explode in a swarm of flesh, guts, and blood. From the sound of the explosion, the organization members knew that their time was up. So, whoever survived the fight picked up the unconscious bodies and retreated. 2B and U.N.I.T.S, on the other hand, also made their escape, releasing the rest of the lockdown, but claiming that the two cats would return stronger. But until then, both group leaders retrieved the battered and beaten allies, and Drakena felt immense guilt for her astral son getting in the crossfire. But it was a necessary evil in order for them to win the fight. Oh, and to make AJ's life even more difficult, all of this happened on his birthday week during his spring break. Poor guy couldn't catch a break. First Rex not being in Smash, now this. Eventually, Felicia and Selena were revived from the afterlife earlier than expected, as they regrouped with the cops and continued to plan any strategies. But thankfully, no revenge plot came through. And by the end of it all, Doll was able to share her plans to the co-owner of the Disney alignment, greenlighting the return of Wild and Crazy Guy Day, this time with twice the amount of members from the original series. But that is a story for another day. And so, that was Blood of Stands, a short but simple storyline of two people that been through it all and stood against many odds in Fox Kids Special. From having one save the life of the other, to the other being inspired by the first person, to eventually being on equal footing. Maybe for how many things that happened in that storyline, and since my original videos are really old and dated, I may make a revision of that storyline all in one big video, but it is something to consider since I have many other storylines and video essays I would like to get to. If you like this storyline, please consider leaving a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. With that, I'm AJ, and I'll see you all in the next one.